wealth of experience. Now, in between the 21 years, I had opportunity to go back to school, back and forth. College to do a bachelor's degree, diploma, and then bachelor's degree, and then later on a postgraduate degree, combining economics and finance at Michigan State University. When I returned in 83 exactly, I taught for a period of 1 year at the Gambia College, my old place. I was there before I went, and when I returned, I taught for about a year. Then I joined the planning unit of the Ministry of Agriculture in Banjul, PPMU, for a brief period. And then I moved over to the National Investment Board. 84 to 1990, I was with the Investment Board, rising to the level, from the level of chief economist to deputy chief executive. In 91, I left government entirely and went to the private sector, in the banking sector. Until 2001, when I left the banking sector at the level of a managing director, chief executive, on retirement. And then I started doing things of my own interest, freelance consulting here and there, most of the time on my farm, and sometimes with my family, visiting with my children and their kids in UK and US. So in a nutshell, this is Tamujai.
Okay. Well, it's well said. You summarized it all. But Mr. Nyai, before we go into what do you know best, that is the agriculture, I would like to know a little bit about education that time. And presently, where do you think that Gambia has reached, or where we are about to?
No, certainly there are far more educational opportunities today. Literally, as government has said, education has been brought to the doorstep of most Gambians. I wouldn't say all, but most Gambians.
Most Gambians, yeah.
But all Gambians are within easy reach of educational facilities with minimal effort. When I was going to school, those opportunities were not available. There were a few secondary schools, I think about 3 or 4. 2 merged later to form 1 and reduced the total number to 3 until the 70s when the Ahmadiyya Mission established Nusrat High School. That raised the number slightly. And middle schools were virtually concentrated around Brikama to Banjul. Upcountry we had only primary schools. Worse still, those who wanted to proceed for further studies had no opportunity anyway. Accountancy, it was not heard of. There was no opportunity to do something like that here. Even A-levels, there was only 1 sixth form available at the Gambia High School with a maximum capacity of a few, probably a score students. Today, you have all kinds of opportunities, both provided by the public sector and the private sector, reflecting the open door policy that has been introduced in the educational sector, which I support. Of course, that doesn't mean you open the door and just leave it. Government is regulating. But it has conferred tremendous benefit to people. I had to struggle to do my A-levels by correspondence course. In those days, there was nothing like online training. It was simply by the traditional postage system. They post you the material, you study, do the assignments, post them back, they do the marking and then post them back to you. Then when you feel confident that you can attempt the overseas examination organized by London University or Cambridge, you will so indicate and they will make arrangements. I remember the old British Council, which is today the Council for National Arts headquarters. That's where we used to take examinations.
Wow.
You know, GCE O-level, GCE A-level correspondence, private candidates. And some of us went through that system. It's been hard, but it's been rewarding. Today, kids have it right on their doorsteps and they don't want to take advantage of it. I had to be working whilst in agriculture and taking A-levels at the same time. I doubt if many students do that today. So there have been tremendous opportunities, and I still believe that there's a lot of room for improvement and expansion. There are still parts of the country where probably there's no good high school within easy reach or good middle school within easy reach, but those are few and far in between. But I think we've done a lot.
Like I was talking to a honorable speaker the other time, hence he was once a student, then a school teacher. I was talking about education then. Like you already said, education was like you have to fight for it, tooth and nail, to get where you want to get. And parents were not that rich. For you to go overseas, it was something else. It was like a nightmare. He said something really, really interesting. He said he had this paper when he was in school. And now he gave it to a university student presently and got only 3 corrects. He gave it to his son who didn't even have 1 correct. And during his time, he had something like 18 over 25. And if you look at the doors that are open now when it comes to education, you can send an email to a school, you can search online, whatever you want to see or what you want to learn from. But still now education is like those days. What is the problem? Is it that teachers are not qualified or students are not ready to learn? Can you tell us what you think is the problem?
In my view, there is more than one problem. There are quite a number of problems.
Okay.
You see, the whole process of education needs to be looked at again, I believe. During the time when I went to school, you had a standardized syllabus across horizontal lines. I was able to write a fairly good letter at standard 2, which is today the equivalent of primary 4. I was able to write a very good letter. And I could solve quite a number of arithmetical puzzles at that time.
Yeah.
At standard 2. By the time I was standard 4, ready to take what was then called the scholarship exam to high school, I could really write a very good letter. I used to write for my mother.
That is primary 6 that time?
That is primary
common
6
entrance?
equivalent. Yes,
Okay.
primary 6 equivalent today.
Okay.
Now, but in those days, a good number of teachers were qualified. They were small in number, of course, but they were qualified. They were committed. But the education department also was always on their neck. We would sit in class, the teacher will be teaching. Once every week, a school inspector will quietly walk into the room and sit in the back, listen for the whole lesson to see what the teacher is delivering. At the end of the lesson, that inspector will go and inspect the teacher's lesson notes, scheme of work, register, and so on, and see whether A, it is in line with the recommended approved syllabus, B, whether the teacher has actually prepared sufficiently to deliver the material, and 3, whether suitable and adequate records have been kept. These days, that has not been happening.
Okay.
And therefore, the liberalization policy in education, the open door policy in education, must be seen within the context that when you liberalize, it's not hands off. You expand it, but you keep watching and regulating. Otherwise, you will get what is called miseducation. Now, we have seen quite a lot of this happening, especially in some of the private schools. They increase the number of students, increase the fees, but they don't deliver effectively. Now, that is a job that the education authorities have to address. Another example, when we were students in primary and middle school, there was no such thing as organized studies in schools where you compulsorily pay a fee. Teachers will insist that once, twice a week, we have study sessions to review what we have done the previous period. But this was not a paying session. The teacher realized that there were gaps, and he was trying to fill up those gaps, so that by exam time, his class will excel. And we will all be compelled to go, sometimes from 5 to 6 or 5 to 7 in the evening, and we will go over material. That was done, but it was not for a fee. It was very important. Second, we as students will organize ourselves into study groups. You see where the nursing school is present, School of Nursing.
Yeah.
We used to go and sit by that wall there in the evenings. There's an electric lamp post there just by the rear exit of State House. We will be there studying until about 11 o'clock, then we will disperse and we will all go home. Among ourselves, people of the same class and so on. We will pose problems, we will work out, we will have chalks, and we will be calculating on the road and so forth, etc. It was dark, tarred road and so forth, so it was very nice with chalk, and we will do things like that. So today, I see a lot of new things being introduced. And those new things are just introduced and not properly coordinated and regulated. We see the effect. When you look at the West African school certificate exams, the senior school certificates, a very low percentage of the candidates fielded for the exam passed English. A very low percentage, not more than 18%. The last time I looked at it, passed mathematics. Now 18% and 10% are too low, especially for English. We pride ourselves in having been under British colonial rule for 200-300 years with English as the official language,